Partnership. That's when it's like a sole proprietor, but you're in with others. Maybe one or maybe more than one. Advantages are easy to do. You may get more sources of money because they put in some money, you put in some money. You guys are all working together. You divide the profit and loss. Two heads are better than one. You want to go on vacation, your partner runs it as if it is their business, which it is. They get sick, you can run it because it is your business. So there are a lot of advantages to it. Personal liability increases in a partnership. Not only are you liable, like I just said, when you are a sole proprietor, you're also liable for anything they do. So they go out and buy a truck in your partnership and you didn't want to buy a truck and now it has to be paid for and you don't want to pay for it, well, too bad. You're in a partnership, you're responsible for half of that payment. So you have to do that. If you have disputes, you don't agree. You usually agree with yourself, I hope. You got somebody else, you're going to want to do things differently. It could be a problem. And it could be an issue, again, with succession because it's the partners. How do you sell it? Now, one thing we always recommend is, you have a good working agreement. Anytime you're going into business with other people, have a good, this is where an attorney comes into play. And there is LegalZoom.com. You can go to LegalZoom.com, get all sorts of forms, everything like that. But I guarantee you, you won't get as good as you can from a professional. But have a working agreement that says things like what they can and can't do. They can't, incur a liability without both partners signing on it. Or they can't, do this or that. Also, buy-sell agreement should be in this. If you don't want to be their partner anymore, how do you get out? So now the example, that company is worth $200,000. You're tired of the business or you're tired of them. You want to get out. The person selling always thinks it's worth more than the person buying. So the guy that wants to get out, well, I'll take $100,000 for my half. Whoa, no, I'll give you $50 for your half. Oh, you're ripping me off. Your buy-sell agreement will tell you how you'll evaluate the business, how you evaluate it, and how the method will be to pay the other off. I used to use what was called a forced buy-sell, because if I didn't like them, didn't want to be in business with them, I wanted to have the opportunity to make them get out of the business. With a forced buy-sell, I'd make them an offer. They had 30 days to accept my offer or to pay me what I offered them. So in a 50-50. So that's like cutting the pie. You think I'm going to give them a lowball offer? No. I'm not going to cut a skinny piece into a big piece because they're going to take the big piece and I'm going to be left with the skinny piece. So if I offer them a lowball, they're going to say, I'll buy you out for that amount. So there are ways to handle that. But you need to have that up front. It will cost you a lot less money. I also used to do key man insurance and have insurance plans. If I was in business with others and something happened, they died, then I didn't want to be in business with their family, with their estate. The money might be tied up in inventory, receivables, things like that. I might not have the $100,000 to give to them. I've got $100,000 worth of wrenches. Well, maybe they don't want that. They want the cash to get out of it. But by having that insurance, I could have it designated to give them the $100,000. Their stock transfers over to me, and now I own it. But be very careful about these. They're easier, but there's a lot of disadvantage. Now, the good news is you can start in one place and change later. So you can start as a sole proprietorship when you don't have much revenue, you don't have much taxes, you don't have much assets. It's no big deal. There can be tax liabilities for changing from one to another. I had a company, I tied all the property into the company. I sold that company. The people didn't want the property, but they wanted to rent it from me, so that was okay. But I had to take the property out of the company and put it into my name, even though I own the company. That's the way it works. Well, I had to pay capital gains tax on all of that property, even though I hadn't sold the property. I still had it. So that hurt. So you may have some tax liability if you've built up resources and you change from one to another. C corporation. It is separate from you. It's a totally separate entity. An example might be General Motors. General Motors, I can own stock in General Motors. I can own shares of General Motors. I am separate from General Motors. If they create something that hurts people, they can't come after me for anything. The only thing I can lose is the money I invested in that shares or stock, because it's a totally separate entity. So I have limited liability. It's very flexible. It allows us to raise cash easily because you can sell stocks and shares. That's the reason they formed corporations, because they got bigger than little partnerships could be, and you needed something more. It's easier to do benefits and things like that. It's easier for continuity. If I'm the president of a corporation and I die, the corporation still exists. If I'm the president of a sole proprietorship and I die, it's done. It's over. So they just bring in somebody else. I mean, General Motors had how many presidents over the years? So it's really easy for a business to continue into the future and to sell it. Now, I always bought assets and sold stock. Be careful buying shares and stock, buying a whole company, buying their stock, because you also get all of their liability. So if there's some liability, they don't care that you didn't own that you didn't own this company when the infraction occurred. The company is who they're going after. You just happen to own it. Whereas if I buy the assets, go after that guy. I don't own that company. I just own the assets, customers list, non-compete, whatever it is, stuff I wanted. Startup costs a little bit more, like $150 or something like that. Sunbiz.org, you all been there? Sunbiz.org, you can go in there. You can see about setting up a corporation, setting up a fictitious name, doing business as. Are you familiar with that? If you are a sole proprietor, you may not want to call yourself that. So I may be NedHarper sole proprietor, but I want to do yard weeding service. Wouldn't that be fun? So I want to call my company Yard Weeding Service. Well, that's not my name. I can't advertise and promote and do things as Yard Weeding Service when it's not my name. So I go to sunbiz.org, I go under fictitious name, I file to use that name, doing business as, NedHarper doing business as, weed, whatever it is, service. So now I'll give you a tip on that. If you are going to set up a fictitious name, do it in the Deland Beacon, because it's half the price of doing it. They'll tell you have to advertise in the newspaper. And I'm not trying to send business one place, I'm going to try and save you money. It's like $75 here and $40 over there. So you can save $35 and it meets the guideline. Or maybe the New Smyrna Beach Observer. Do they advertise in that? I don't know. That might be, I need to investigate that. Find out how much it would cost to do that. Maybe even cheaper than that. But you'll have to let people know that you're going to be calling yourself something. At sunbiz.org, you can set up an LLC, you can set up a corporation, you can file for a fictitious name, you can do business with the state of Florida at that. I would recommend you get advice and not just do it on your own, but it's your business. There's a little bit more regulation. You've got to do it every year. If you set up a corporation but you don't do it the next year, then it's over. So you've got to do things and paperwork. And there's taxes related to a C corporation. You've heard of double taxation? A C corporation pays taxes to the state of Florida. Now, whenever I owned C corporations, we made sure we had no profit because we did bonuses and stuff and spent it all so that there was no profit. So I didn't pay any taxes. So that was moved for me, but that was a lot of work. The other way around it is they formed a thing called an S corporation. So you form a corporation, but you choose to file with the IRS as an S corporation. You take an S corporation election. And what that means is you don't pay corporate taxes, but all the profits or losses flow through to the owners. So if your company made $100,000 this year, and we're 50-50 owners, then you get a $50,000 tax liability to the IRS, and I get one. They flow through. You have the same corporate credibility. It's different. You avoid the double taxation.